What's up? Welcome back to ScholaLatinae. My name is Wyatt Roder, and I'm coming to you from the Georgetown Library, where there are some very concerning messages written on the wall here. But that is not going to stop us from talking today about mythology. Specifically, we're picking up where we left off last time and talking about Cronus, his overthrow, his fall from power, and the main Greco-Roman Pantheon that you may be familiar with. That, according to the account given by Hesiod and other Greek authors, comes to power after Cronus is defeated. So let's get started by just talking briefly about Kronos. If you remember last time, he had just killed his father at the behest of his mother Gaia with a sickle, thus generating Aphrodite in some accounts from the blood of Uranus that falls into the ocean. Um, at the same time, also generating the Furies, the Melii, which are ash nymphs, and the Hecatoncheires. So Kronos here's a prophecy that he's going to meet a fate much like his father, in that one of his children will overthrow him. So naturally, to prevent this, he just starts gobbling them up, figuring, if my children are eaten by me, they can't do much to stop me. But of course, things do not go as planned, and either the first or last born of his children, depending on your account, Zeus, Zeus is saved by his mother Rhea, a Titaness who marries Kronos, and Rhea substitutes a rock called Omphalos, according to some accounts, in the place of Zeus, and Kronos swallows this rock, while Zeus is brought to Mount Ida, or Mount Dicte, both on Crete, where he is raised by the nymph Amalthea, or no, my bad, the nymph Adrastea, as well as the nymph Idaea, along with the help of the goat Amalthea, on whose milk he is fed. And that is this depiction down here. We have Adrastea feeding the infant Zeus the milk of Amalthea, who's depicted down there on the bottom. So Zeus has a pretty nice upbringing, while all his other siblings are, just chilling in the stomach of Kronos. Whether they're in one piece or not, it doesn't matter. They're eaten. Francesco Goya decided to depict it in this way, where we can definitely see there was some mangling and mutilation of the body as Kronos eats his children. A horrifying and fascinating painting, but I digress. How does Zeus get his siblings out of this sticky situation? Well, Zeus's first wife, the Titaness Metis, decides, along with Rhea, to help Zeus overthrow Kronos. And what happens is Metis gives Kronos an emetic, basically a potion that makes him vomit, and all of Kronos' children come out of his stomach, and war ensues. And I should say, actually, the war is rather brief. The gods simply defeat the Titans having their main base at Mount Orthres, while the gods take up base at Mount Olympus. There's fighting, such and such. The Cyclopes, the Cyclopses, help the gods, and the Titans are eventually defeated and imprisoned in Tartarus. And there you have it. So now the gods are in power, and as I've said, the subject of this video will simply be to introduce them, talk about their main attributes, and just kind of get to know them. So Zeus, as you may know, is the king of the gods. His Roman name is Jupiter, and he's the god of the sky, thunder, lightning, and he rules the other gods. He's also the god of hospitality in some cases, and in fact, many other things. And just to speak a bit about Zeus as a character historically in mythology, as like kind of the main figure in the pantheon, to some extent, he's actually a conglomeration of a bunch of different gods that were kind of brought into a single personage over time. And then, notably in the story of Zeus and his siblings, specifically Hades and Poseidon, when they were figuring out how to divide the world amongst themselves after the defeat of the Titans, they decided to draw lots, basically pull, you might imagine, little like sticks out of a jar and see whose is the longest. Zeus ended up pulling the longest lot, thus giving him the sky because that was apparently the most desirable. Poseidon drawing the second longest, thus getting the sea, and then Hades getting the underworld, since he was not as fortunate as the other brothers, so they say. But there you have it. This is Zeus. Not much needs to be said about him, as I'm sure you're very erudite in the matters of Zeus. But he is certainly one of the central forces in driving these Greco-Roman narratives, mythological narratives. So no. Now we have Hades and Poseidon. Like I said, they ruled the ocean and the underworld respectively. Hades' Roman name was Pluto, and he was the god, as I've said, of the underworld and afterlife. Afterlife. His symbols being dogs, the scepter, the cornucopia in some cases, wealth in general. Hades, as the god of the underworld, represented wealth because the idea was that wealth came from the earth, and many other things. Another notable thing that is associated with Hades is the cap of invisibility, which, as you might guess, makes you invisible. Poseidon, as you may know, his Roman name is Neptune. He's the god of the oceans, seafarers naturally, and earthquakes, as well as horses and all sea related things. Not to say horses are inherently, intuitively linked to the sea, but yes, Poseidon was the god of horses. Um, and there's a fun story that relates to that we will get to one day. Naturally, his symbols were, like I've said, sea things. The trident, which is to be contrasted with the bident, which is a symbol of Hades, um, and everything else you might imagine, and more. Now we have Hera, who is the queen of the gods, the sister of Zeus. So yes, there's some incestuous relationships going on, but that's what deities do. Um, Something to get used to. So Hera marries Zeus, becomes the queen of the gods. Her Roman name is Juno, and she, as like the queen of the gods, is a representative of marriage, the concept of marriage, as well as the family and just woman in general. Um, she's also a goddess of childbirth in many ways, and again, many other symbols and concepts. Speaking of her symbols, we have some animals: peacocks, geese, cows, and then the lotus scepter. And she's well known for ruining the lives of many women that Zeus cheats on her with. That's kind of her, main function in many mythological narratives. Then we have this nice picture here where this decapitated person, the provenance of them is completely unknown to me, but cool image regardless. Here we have Athena, her Roman name being Minerva, and she is the goddess of wisdom, war, specifically the strategic elements of war, and handicrafts. As you may know, she competed with Arachne in a weaving contest and lost, so whether she's justly deserving of being the god of handicrafts is up for debate. Um, but there is that. And then her symbols are owls, olive trees, as she grants one to Athens in one story. That's very common. The Aegis, which has an interesting origin. And then she has a very significant role in a lot of myths, especially the Odyssey, where she helps Odysseus, the clever protagonist. And I should say, since we're on the topic of Athena having a rather significant role in myths, Hades, to be distinguished from the other gods, and Hestia, as we will get to soon, do not have a very significant role in mythology. Um, and as you kind of get a sense for Greco-Roman mythology, perhaps the reason for that will become more clear. But just in general, there are not many stories um, where they have active agency. So now we have Hermes, his Roman name being Mercury, and he is the god of communications, travelers, tricksters, and thieves. Some of his siblings, as is the case with many gods, represent these attributes, such as Autolycus, um, kind of a thieving vagabond that may be the father of Odysseus. So you can kind of see the connection there, and wit and cunning. But again, I digress. His symbols are the winged helmet and sandals, the caduceus staff, and the lyre, as well as many other things. And notably, Hermes also serves as a kind of emissary or intermissary um, that goes between the land of the living and the dead, conducting souls back and forth. Now we have Artemis and Apollo. Artemis' Roman name is Diana, and she is the goddess of the hunt, virginity, one of the three virgin goddesses, the other two being Athena, which I failed to mention, and Hestia. She's also the goddess of childbirth and the moon. Now, how can Artemis be the goddess of childbirth and virginity at the same time? Well, the story goes that Artemis, though she's considered Apollo's twin, was in fact birthed first by her mother Latona slash Leto, and thereby was able to help her mother give birth to Apollo. So more will be elaborated on once we specifically delve into her stories, but that is the gist of it. And then her symbols, as goddess of the hunt, are naturally the bow, the arrow, hunting knives, and deer, and many other things as it goes. Apollo's Roman name is Apollo. That's simple. And he's the god of archery, music, poetry, prophecy, healing, and the sun. And his symbols, similar to his sister, he has the bow and arrow, the lyre, and the laurel tree. Now, you may remember Hermes also is symbolized by the lyre, and that's because both of them at different points had, in fact, ownership of the lyre. It was traded to Apollo by Hermes, actually, after Hermes had invented it. And we have Aphrodite. Now, Aphrodite's Roman name is Venus. She's the god of love, beauty, fertility. And her symbols are roses, doves, and pearls. Yes, all those things you could guess for yourself. And Aphrodite is certainly one of the more important gods, if we're going to be categorizing them that way. She has a significant role in the Aeneid as the father of the protagonist, Aeneas, and generally as the goddess of love. As you may remember from the other video, I mentioned how Eros was an important primordial force in some accounts. Venus is just so as important as a deity who, like, represents this concept that is inherently important to, like the propagation of lineages, love. So there you have it, Aphrodite. And now we have Ares, whose Roman name is Mars, and he's the god of war, courage, and combat. His symbols being war-related things: the sword, the spear, the helmet, the vulture, and many more things. Now, Ares actually does not figure much in mythology, and when he does, he's actually kind of getting kind of blasted by the other gods. In fact, he has a bit of a failure in the Iliad when he is wounded by a mortal and kind of like pathetically goes to complain to his parents and such. So yeah, that can kind of tell you a little bit about perhaps the perspective the ancients had towards war. But again, that is, or I should say, that is a rather complex topic. Yeah, in any case, Ares is the god of war, um, and does war related things. He's also notably, perhaps, his figure originates from Thrace, which was imagined by the Greeks as kind of a barbaric and intensely raw place, to put it um, in that way. Okay, now we have Dionysus, wrapping up soon. His Roman name is Bacchus, and he's the god of wine, partying, theater, and related things. His symbols are grapevines, ivy, the thyrsus, or the tursus, which is a cool staff, theater masks, and leopards and tigers, um, and quite a few other things, but that's the gist of it. Now, Dionysus, uh, he's just pretty cool. He's just living life. He kind of represents a more, again, I'll use this word, raw, like feral aspect of humanity, and that he goes wild and causes a lot of fascinating and horrible things to happen in mythology. So there you have it, Dionysus. And finally, we have Hestia, who's really just chilling, in fact. Her Roman name is Vesta, and she's the god of the home, family, hearth, and state. So these kind of, you know, group, uh, like bonding uh, subjects. Um, as you can see, she's symbolized by the hearth and its fire. Notably, there is the like fire of Vesta in the city of Rome, which the Romans took care to keep going at all times, because the idea was that as long as this fire should be going, um, the city of Rome would stay protected by the gods and such. So Hestia, though she does not really have many stories at all in mythology, I can only think of perhaps two, she is still a very, very significant personage, and one that gives you a sense of what the ancient Greeks and Romans and related cultures kind of held dear and valued when it came to social relationships, especially those relating to the family, and the greater family as a whole, the state. Uh, so that concludes the video. Thank you for watching, and tune in next time where we will talk in more depth about the stories prefiguring around these personages, their children, as most of mythology goes, and other mythologically related things. See ya!